Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. First, let me give shouts out to Universal UC for coming through on the Cash App, and a shout out to Onyx Logistics for being willing to come through on the Cash App. And again, shouts out to MLR for consistency, Gale the Knight for consistency, and to C Burke for generosity. Shouts out to Passport OG for consistency, and shouts out to him, Don Calypso, and to BGS Ibmore for constantly sharing, and to Compassionate and Callous for the artwork and for sharing, and Red Lion for sharing. I've asked that y'all hit the share button. These guys have come through and done it. So from the bottom of my black heart, from the depths of my black mind, thank you. It's my job to make it worth the while of the listener for the listener's benefit. Now that being said, I'm going to briefly tell you all before I get into the main topic, which is my reason for opening this up to record, that about a year ago, I chopped it up with a young brother, and he put some merch out. I don't think anybody bought it. This time I'm asking you all, and it's not my merch. I'm not going to get anything from this, except for one thing, and that is going to be the ease of you guys recognizing each other when we travel abroad. I talked with him, and he stated that he was starting with long sleeve shirts, sweaters, hoodies, because airports and train stations do tend to be pretty well air conditioned. And so this way you can be comfortable while you're inside waiting, but you can still be recognizable to each other. See, when black men travel, we're recognizable to each other. Of all nationalities, we're recognizable. And certain things about the things we say and the ways that we walk will make us recognizable to each other based on nationality. It's cool. By the same token, not all of us are BMPTs or be it Passport Bro, Passport Gang, SYSBM, or IBM or R. Not all of us are such. But when we are, that says something else. So I remember when I was on Hajj and brothers ain't recognized me. I would, throw my head up, give the brother nod like we're supposed to do. And honestly, black Saudis are supposed to do that. I mean, black Arabs have the same thing. They see each other, they're supposed to give each other the head nod. But, and that sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? But in my case, I was doing it. A lot of them didn't even see me. They didn't realize that somebody was speaking to them. Or I wouldn't say speaking out loud, but giving them the head nod. Last week I was in Mecca and Medina, and it was the same thing. I was reminded of it all over again. We're going to have a way to be recognizable to each other. And this young brother decided over a year ago, and then again he decided to be first in making this easier for us while in the act of traveling. So please go to my community tab, scroll down and see that link. Now I'm going to get into why I opened this up to record. The default simping is the simping that we are currently abandoning en masse as a black male collective, courtesy of the Black Manosphere. We know what that simping is, what it involves. We're fairly clear about it. It's not treating a woman well, but it does involve doing too much in exchange for too motherfucking little. That's simping. The problem with that is all too known and too infamous. The problems are too infamous. Let me state it that way. That's the better way to say it. So we're not really ambiguous on what that means. Maybe a few young guys still in their teens are, but we're not. Simping is pretty much the opposite treatment. It's the opposite of the treatment we get from the hyenas, and it is the treatment they demand in exchange for the treatment they give us. That's simping. But what about secondary simping? We're not fully aware of this. First of all, the default simping we are currently abandoning was not always our fault, because the awareness was not always there. What did we have? I mean, the only men that were really allowed to be around us were the ones that were going to teach us to simp anyway. It wasn't challenged. The programming was not challenged. If it was, those folks were done away with. It was accepted as the order. You simp. The women are just like that. They're just difficult. It's not their fault. They're just women. They're just being how they were made. It's your job as a man to... And then that opened the door for the secondary simping. It's your job as a man to maintain frame. Okay, fine. It is. But it is not your job as a man to maintain some mystical frame that never seems to have any human limitations, so that she will accept you being the leader while you pay the bills, paying the cost to be the boss. No. You maintain your frame, not the frame that's going to always dazzle her. She needs to learn to live with real life. These women have to live in a real world, whether they're with us or without us. They need to learn to live in it with us and stop being mad and being upset, because life is still real when we come around. Only now they're getting an orgasm out of the deal too, and all the help that a man can afford to provide. Secondary simping is harder to understand. Secondary simping is harder to stop. You see, secondary simping is not something that the secondary simp knows he's doing. Some men mean well, but what they're guiding towards is secondary simping. Yesterday, my time, I told you all that in the Black Manosphere show, the week episode 74, I said that, the Westernisha has to become the opposite of what she is to qualify. She has to become the opposite of her current self, because her current self is an enemy. What I'm telling you is that you must become the opposite of what they told us to be when we were young. When I say they, I mean the hyenas, the German shepherds, the gynocrats, the matriarchs, the sisters. What they told us to be, the simp, is the opposite of what we need to become to a certain extent. And I don't necessarily mean that we need to be this strong-handed pimp, putting them out on the street, stuff, but, well, you get the idea. Let me rephrase it and clarify it a little bit. What we need to not be is a secondary simp, just like we don't need to be a primary simp. We're aware that we need to not be a primary simp, a default simp. But we're not aware that the secondary simping is just as bad. That is when you believe that though you understand the way that women are going to act if they can, you then start to accept that they can't be any better. They're just that way because they're women, and it is your job as a man to figure them out and learn to manipulate them so that you can live with one. That's secondary simping. It does not hold them accountable. We don't do that. We do not accept that they can't help but be like children. No, they may act like children because they can, but we don't accept that they can't help it but be any other way. They don't tolerate our nature when it is not malicious. We will not tolerate anything from them when it is malicious, even if it is their nature. If it is their nature, then we will leave them. I know there's a hadith in our religion that says that the woman's a bent rib. If you leave her, she'll stay crooked, and if you try to straighten her out, you'll break her. I know there's that hadith. Straighten her out anyway. If she breaks, she breaks. Or you leave and she stays crooked, but you don't have to deal with that. I don't advocate serial monogamy, going from one woman to the next, but I do advocate leaving when they decide they're not going to act like adults. We don't do that. We're men. Black men are some of the last ones and furthest away from trying to lay down with kids. That ain't us. But what they've done is set up and said, you a creep if you like us young, but we're going to act young and childish all our lives, and you're supposed to give us some when we ask you. We're leaving them because they won't grow up, and now they're mad about that. Secondary simping, though, is this notion that you just don't even need to expect more out of them. No, shuck that fit. Let them grow the fuck. Or stay by themselves, as I said. They must defy themselves or stay by themselves. But we also must not fall victim to the other secondary simping. You know, when some dating roach gets up, even if it's a man that doesn't mean any harm, gets up and says stuff like, tap into your inner Superman, and he starts posing for photographs with the muscle and everything else. And he wants to sit up and, you know, when you feel like giving up at times, he wants to sit up and give you a pep talk that involves calling you the P word. He's promoting secondary simping even if he didn't mean to. Mahdi Tijani out the UK, my Muslim brother, who may not mean to do it, has done so. He also does not fully understand that a lot of men are simply not going to do as well with women as he is, because for one, he was married when he was young. Number two, he is abnormally tall. Women are not going to respond to him the same way they would respond to most of us. I am not 6 feet. He's 6'3", I think, 6'2". In the West, women are going to respond to him differently, favorably. End of. It's not his fault. It's not ours. But he has to understand that. He has to understand that we don't owe an apology when we feel like giving up. That's something that is caused because we are in an environment, we grow up in an environment in which the normality of a man is enough to make him a subhuman in her eyes and a creep. He tells you how to not do things that give women the ick. But then he moves on to talk about certain things that you have no way of knowing. But he doesn't tell you that what this means you should do is leave that Western hyena German shepherd alone. He doesn't go that far. I do, but he doesn't. Some of you do, but he doesn't. He's not the only one. And again, I'm not saying this because I hate him, but there are some dating roaches out there, and I hate them because they're dating roaches. He tried to come up with something in which the women still have to give in order to get. That was actually an attempt to be fair. But you see, you got some dating roaches that are sitting up there talking about pay me and I'll teach you how to get maintain frame, and then you pay them, and then they say, okay, now this is what you do. We're gonna change your dress. So then you gotta buy the new clothes, and we gotta get rid of this car. So you gotta buy a new car. So you gotta pay him, and then pay all of his boys who are selling these things for these things that women want you to have, so that you can run up in some funky, as Lion of MGTOW would call it, musty axe wound. Because we know their pH is off. Y'all told us about that. That's secondary simping. Self-improvement for a Westernisha is secondary simping. Cut that mess out. See, the gender war may be over in certain parts of the states. Women in different areas seem to be responding differently, and I can understand that. They may simply be too busy surviving to try to fight a gender war anymore, because since they've driven the men away, they're now too busy fighting to survive to be fighting us for being men. And the only relief is going to come from those of us that are willing to take them in and take them on. We see that. So maybe that's what's going on right now, but let me tell you, gentlemen, that gender war is being exported to other countries. It's not stopping in the States. It doesn't seem to be meeting with much success and much spread in much of Southeast Asia. I think maybe Kuala Lumpur might be an exception. I don't know about the rest of Malaysia. But in the continent, it is. It's spreading. Depends on where you are, but it's spreading. And I'm not here for it. Who's spreading it? You don't secondarily simp for women that spread something like this to places where it was not before. You don't do that. I didn't find Andrew Tate, and mind you, I have disagreements with him, but I did not find Andrew Tate to be among those preaching a secondary simping. He told the ladies what they needed to understand and what they needed to just not get, or what they needed to give in order to get what they wanted out of men. He told them that, to his credit. We had dating roaches before that, telling us to just self-improve. Kevin Samuels, to a certain extent, was one of them before he came over to our side. The Black Manosphere, remember, was always around. I wouldn't say from the time of creation. When I say always, I don't mean that, but I mean that the Black Manosphere was there. And I was in the Black Manosphere back when Kevin Samuels was not known. And when he was known for telling men to get our stuff together, and he didn't have a further-mucking thing to say to the women. Later on, he began to realize they were delusional. You begin to find this out. There was a time he would have promoted a type of secondary simping. He changed from being that person. He did not die as that same man. I'm not saying that self-improvement is secondary simping. What I'm saying is that to preach that to someone, to encourage that, or to be willing to do it for a Western woman is secondary simping. To think that you need to qualify for a woman that is raised in that environment of the West is secondary simping. It can be done out of ignorance because you just don't know how bad they are, but they're really that bad. I knew that before Austin Holloman said it. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm not saying that to take away from Austin Holloman. He's 23. I had time to know this. At the time that I left the States, he was about 15. He was not a barber at that time. When I left the United States, he was a teenager. We did not know who he was, and he was still learning who he was, through no fault of his own. That's normal. I'm simply saying that what he knows and what he's rightly telling you, it's that bad, I knew, and I still know even more about, because I've had more time to know and learn about it. I'm telling you, it's that bad. You self-improve for a Western woman, you are secondarily simping. Because even if you don't know it, when you ask them to give, they're not going to give in exchange. You don't have that option. It's not allowed. They're looking at you and they're saying you don't deserve. And when they don't hate you consciously, they've been taught this. And that's what makes it that bad. So no secondary simping either. You self-improve, like Lion MGTOW has been telling us, you self-improve for your own reasons. Better yourself for yourself. BYFY. Spread that. We talked about that before. He came up with it. I said, this is a good idea. So you do it, but you do not do it trying to qualify for someone over there. When you better yourself and then you bounce. Now, some say, well, since you yourself said black mind and not all of us are going to be able to leave what should we do? What you should do is if you are stuck there and you're going to be with someone, then you don't bring much to the table. Refuse to bring much to the table. If you have it, take it off the table anyway and don't offer it. What's the reason? Because it's that bad. You have a lot to bring to the table and they know you do, and you bring it to the table, then you're a mark. Not to me, but to them. That's secondary simping. You bring the stuff that they want to the table, knowing father mucking well that when you were young, didn't have much, they refused to be what you want, do what you anything like that. Then they're gonna turn around after you done bettered yourself and bring you another man's kids in a big old gut and some debt and psychological issues. Meanwhile, you inexperienced compared to them. They're bringing a higher body count than you'll ever be able to get. And they got demands and standards. How dare they? So what you do is, while you have, you keep it away from you. That's what you do if you're going to be with any of them. Because it's still, the war still exists, even if it is closing out and it is over in some places, it still is extant. The games ain't stopped. Your mama ain't coming out and saying, and telling you what the games are. Some of your mothers do, but I mean, most of your moms ain't willing to do it. Your aunts ain't doing it either. Your big sisters ain't doing it. Your grandmoms ain't confessing to you about what the games are. Now, they may have not had the vocabulary to talk about it if they're from a previous generation, but what about your older sister? What about your older cousin? Some of your younger ones are willing to sit there, look you in the face and lie like you don't know they lying. See, we were programmed to be the default simps, the simps that we're now abandoning being. We're programmed for that. There was a time you couldn't really blame anybody because we knew nothing else. We weren't allowed to know anything else. It wasn't our fault. That was a program. No other program was available to us. None. There was that time. Now you look at it and that time is over because the information is out there. But we're learning consciously, and I just wanted to point out to make sure that we also paid attention to what it takes more effort to notice. I wanted to make sure that in the process of doing the right thing consciously, we didn't fall into the wrong thing subconsciously, the secondary simping. And I mention this now because as we're walking away from the default simping that we know is simping, their last hope as they're having these meltdowns in public on camera, their last hope is that we would secondarily simp because we wouldn't know it was simping. So I wanted to help you guys to avoid that. I mean it when I say to you that I hope this helps. I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I hope this helps. Thank you for listening again. As always, black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum, black, heterosexual, non-select male power, just because they don't like it, and frankly because the one that is select to her has to have something wrong with him to be select. So black, heterosexual, non-select male power. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you again for flying with me on Jet Black Airways, but Jet Black is also a verb. Keep Jet Black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. And should you decide to punch that Cash App button on the way out of Jet Black aircraft, please punch in only numbers that will not cause you injury or regret later on. If you cannot do so, that is fine, but then go to my community tab, click on that link to get the merchandise that is not mine, but it belongs to one of our young brothers, SYSBM, who's working on getting out the States, who's actually bought a ticket, who's planning on leaving. Gender justice forever.